Hello and welcome back to the deep dive.
Great to be here.
Today we are doing something a little different. Usually we look at a specific event or a piece of news or maybe a scientific breakthrough, but today we're holding up a mirror. We're going to look at something you probably interact with every single day, something that might be surrounding you right now if you're listening to this on a commute, but it's something you've probably never stopped to analyze as as a machine that is actively rewriting your brain.
And that machine is the city, the metropolis.
Exactly.
And we should be clear, we aren't talking about urban planning or, zoning laws here.
No, not at all.
We are looking at the city as a psychological environment, a mechanism that forces the human mind to evolve, or maybe devolve, just to survive it.
We have a stack of notes today based on a dense, incredibly profound academic essay titled The Metropolis and Mental Life. And I have to say, reading this was a bit of a red pill moment for me.
Oh, yeah.
It's like someone opened up the back of my skull and showed me the gears turning, explaining why I get impatient in line, why I don't know my neighbors, and, why I feel tired even when I haven't done any physical labor.
It is a classic piece of sociology for a reason. And I think the mission for this deep dive is to really unpack its core argument.
Which is?
That living in a big city doesn't just change your schedule or your diet. It fundamentally rewires your internal psychology. It shifts you from being primarily an emotional creature to an intellectual one.
That is a huge claim, rewiring your psychology. So before we get into the heavy theory, let's ground this a little.
Good idea.
I want to try a little experiment with you, the listener. If you're in a safe place, maybe close your eyes for a second. If you're driving, please do not close your eyes. Just visualize this.
Right.
I want you to imagine you're standing in the middle of Times Square, or maybe Piccadilly Circus, or Shibuya Crossing in Tokyo.
The absolute peak of the metropolis. The most intense version of it.
Right. And really try to feel it. It's not just busy. What is actually happening to your senses?
It's an assault.
It is. You have flashing LED billboards just screaming for your attention. One selling soda, the next a movie, the next breaking news. You have the roar of traffic. It's unpredictable. It's aggressive.
The sirens. They're always sirens.
Always sirens. You have thousands of people rushing past you, dodging you, bumping into you. And the smells change every 10 feet. Hot garbage, then expensive perfume, then exhaust fumes, then roasting nuts.
It is a complete sensory overload, a bombardment.
Exactly. Now, snap your fingers. You're on a dirt lane in a tiny farming village. Maybe it's 1900, maybe it's today in a remote area. What do you hear?
The wind.
The wind, maybe a cow in the distance, a tractor humming.
You see a tree? You walk for 10 minutes. That same tree is still in your line of sight. It's stable.
And if you see one person, you probably know his name. You know his dad's name. You know what he had for lunch yesterday.
The difference is just palpable. And this is exactly where our source material starts. It argues that this contrast isn't just about lifestyle preference. It argues that the shift from that quiet lane to the busy street creates a fundamental shift in your mental foundations.
So let's dive into that, section 1. The psychological foundation of city life. The author uses this phrase that really stuck with me. The intensification of nervous stimulation. It sounds so clinical, but when you think about that Times Square example, it feels violent.
It is violent in a psychological sense. The source identifies this intensification as the bedrock of everything else we're about to talk about. To understand the city mind, you have to first understand the rural mind it grew out of.
Okay.
The source describes rural life, or small town life, as resting on a slow, habitual flowing rhythm.
Slow and flowing. That sounds nice. Almost peaceful.
It means predictability. In a small town, your impressions, what you see and hear, are deeply rooted. They repeat. You see the same faces. You walk the same paths. You do the same tasks.
There's a comfort in that.
There is. And because that rhythm is slow, you have time to react to things with your feelings. Your psychology can rest on the deeper, unconscious emotional layers of the mind. You can afford to be emotional because the stimuli aren't trying to overwhelm you every second.
Okay, but in the city, it's the polar opposite.
It's the complete opposite. The metropolis is defined by what the source calls the rapid crowding of changing images. It's a place of Sharp discontinuities.
Sharp discontinuities. I love that phrase. It perfectly captures that feeling of walking down a city street.
It does.
1 second, you're looking at a homeless person asking for change, and your heart breaks a little. 2 seconds later, you almost get hit by a bike messenger, and you feel a flash of anger. 2 seconds after that, you see a stunningly attractive person walking out of a luxury store. Then a police siren blares past your ear. It's emotional whiplash.
Exactly. And the source makes a crucial point here about our basic biology. It says that man is a differentiating creature.
A differentiating creature, what does that mean?
It means our consciousness is stimulated not by consistency, but by the difference between the present moment and the moment right before it. If I show you a plain red wall for an hour, your brain eventually just stops noticing it.
Right, you tune it out.
But if I flash red, then blue, then green, then strobe lights, then darkness, then a spotlight, your brain goes into overdrive trying to process the changes.
So the city is basically a machine designed to max out our difference receptors. It's a constant strobe light.
Yes, and here is the fundamental problem that the entire essay is built on. If you reacted to every single one of those flashes, every person, every car, every ad, with the deep, heartfelt emotion of the small-town person, what would happen to you?
You'd have a complete breakdown. You'd be weeping or screaming or laughing hysterically within a single block.
You'd be shattered. It is physiologically impossible to process that much data on an emotional level. It would consume too much psychic energy. So, the source argues, the metropolitan person is forced to develop a protective organ, a shield.
And this is the controversial part. The shield isn't toughness or grit. It's intellectuality.
Correct. We are forced to shift the primary location of our reaction from the heart to the head.
Okay, let's push back on this a bit because it could be misinterpreted. Is the source saying that city people are smarter or just that we think more? Because I know plenty of brilliant people who live in small towns.
That's a great question. It's not about intelligence quotient, not at all. It's about which part of the mind is in the driver's seat for daily interactions. The source actually calls the intellect the most superficial and most conscious part of our mind.
Superficial? That sounds like an insult.
In this context, it's actually a compliment to its efficiency. The intellect is adaptable, it's logical, it can categorize things quickly. The emotions, on the other hand, are deep, slow-moving, and hard to change.
So it's about speed.
It's about speed and protection. If you use your intellect, you can treat the world as a data stream. You stop feeling the environment and you start processing it. That homeless man isn't a tragic story. He's an obstacle to navigate around. The bike messenger isn't a threat. He's a moving object with a predictable trajectory.
So when I'm dodging tourists and navigating the subway, I'm not really living in that moment in an emotional sense. I'm just running an algorithm.
In a way, yes. You become rational not because you have a deep love of logic, but because logic is a tougher, more resilient skin than emotion. It protects your sensitive inner life from being constantly uprooted and battered by the currents of the city.
So it's a survival instinct. We basically become Spock to avoid having panic attack.
That is a perfect analogy. We become Spock. But the source argues that this Spock-like rationality doesn't just stay in our heads. It bleeds out into how we structure our entire society.
Which leads us perfectly into the second major pillar of the text, the money economy. Okay, section 2, the money economy and what the source calls the matter-of-fact attitude. Now, obviously, cities are where the banks and markets are, but the source seems to be drawing a much deeper parallel between how money works and how our brains now work.
Yes, and this is where the analysis gets really brilliant. The argument is that this intellectual mindset we just described, that protective shield, is the perfect mirror image of the money economy. Both of them are described with the same term, matter of fact.
Well, matter of fact, it sounds cold, unsentimental.
It is cold. It's objective. It treats people and things as numbers, as functions. It treats the world as a math problem to be solved rather than a story to be experienced or a mystery to be felt.
Can you give us an example of this contrast between the money economy and the pre-money economy?
Sure. Let's go back to our small town. You need a pair of shoes. You go to the cobbler. You probably know him personally. Maybe he made shoes for your father. The transaction is wrapped up in personal history, in reputation, in emotion. You aren't just buying shoes. You are participating in a relationship.
Right.
It's personal. But in the metropolis, production is for the market. The customer is an anonymous abstraction. The producer is an anonymous corporation. When you buy a coffee in the city, do you care who the barista is? Do you know if they're having a bad day or if they have dreams and aspirations?
I mean, I try to be polite. I say please and thank you.
Well,
But ultimately, no, I just want the caffeine. I don't really want to hear their life story if there's a long line behind me.
exactly. The relationship is purely objective. It's transactional. And the source argues that money is the tool that makes this kind of impersonal interaction possible on a mass scale.
How so?
Because money asks one question and one question only: how much? Emotion, on the other hand, asks what kind.
How much versus what kind? That feels like the key distinction here.
It is. Money is the great leveler. It reduces all qualitative differences, what makes a thing special, unique, sentimental, or beautiful, into a single quantitative difference. A number. A price.
So a family heirloom and a toaster are, in a way, the same thing to the market.
In the cold logic of the market, yes. A Rembrandt painting and a pile of manure are the same kind of thing. They are both just commodities with a price tag. One price is much, much higher, but the nature of the value is identical. It's just a number.
But hold on, I have to play devil's advocate here for a second. Isn't that coldness actually a good thing sometimes?
How do you mean?
Well, in a small town, if I have a feud with the only cobbler, I don't get shoes. Or I have to rely on favors and social standing. In the city, money gives me freedom. I don't need the barista to like me. I just need $5. Isn't that a form of liberation?
It is, and the source actually acknowledges that freedom, which we will absolutely get to later. But the question the source is asking is, what is the psychological cost of that freedom?
And the cost is?
The cost is that we develop a calculating mind. We start treating everything and everyone as a function, as part of an equation. The world becomes an arithmetic problem.
We become cynical.
We become cynical. We stop asking, is this person good or is this experience beautiful? And we start asking, what is this interaction worth? Or is this a good use of my time?
And speaking of time,
Yeah.
this brings us to one of my favorite parts of the essay, the tyranny of the clock.
Ah, yes. The pocket watch is a weapon.
The source paints this absolutely terrifying picture of what would happen if the clock stopped.
It speculates, and this is a great thought experiment. Imagine if all the watches in Berlin suddenly went wrong in different ways, just for 1 hour.
Total, utter chaos.
It wouldn't just be an inconvenience. The entire economic and social traffic of the city would collapse into anarchy.
Whereas in a small town, you can say, I'll see you when the cows come home, or meet me at sundown.
Exactly. The rhythm is natural, it's organic. But in the metropolis, the complexity is so high, thousands of trains, millions of meetings, billions of transactions, that without punctuality, calculability, and exactness, the entire system fails.
So the city demands that we become precise, that we become machines ourselves.
It demands that we internalize the clock. We become like clocks ourselves. And the source argues this has a profound and, frankly, damaging impact on our personality. This strict, rigid schedule excludes what it calls irrational, instinctive, sovereign traits.
Right, you can't just follow a whim in the city. If I'm walking to a 9:00 a.m. meeting and I see something beautiful, like a piece of street art, or I feel a sudden urge to just sit on a bench and think, I can't.
You can't.
The grid dictates my behavior more than my own desires do. I have to keep moving. I have to make the meeting.
Exactly. We are forced to strip away our spontaneity to fit into the schedule. We become predictable. We become reliable parts of the machine.
So we've got this picture emerging. We are intellectually shielded, we are calculating and transactional, and we are obsessively punctual. But there's an even darker psychological consequence to all this overstimulation and calculation.
There is.
Section 3, the blasé attitude.
Blasé is a French term.
Yeah.
And the source uses it very specifically to describe the definitive mental state of the modern city dweller.
Now, when I hear blasé, I think of like a teenager rolling their eyes, or a hipster acting like they're too cool for everything. Oh, I'm so bored. But the text says it's much deeper than just boredom.
Much, much deeper. The source defines the blasé attitude not as a choice, but as a physiological incapacity to react to new sensations.
Incapacity. So it's not that I won't react, it's that I physically can't. My nerves are shot.
Precisely. Think back to that first section. The nerves are being bombarded. Stimulus, stimulus, stimulus. Change, change, change. Eventually, the nerves just reach a breaking point. It's like a rubber band that has been stretched too many times. It loses its elasticity, just stops snapping
And
back.
burnout. It's sensory burnout on a citywide scale.
Yes. The source makes a great comparison. It's like a life of unbounded pursuit of pleasure. If you eat the richest foods and drink the finest wines every single day, eventually nothing tastes good anymore.
You become jaded.
You become jaded. The city does the same thing, not through pleasure, but through the sheer volume of rapidly changing images. The nerves have reacted so many times they simply give up and refuse to react anymore.
So, what does the world look like to a person who is truly blasé?
Gray. The source explicitly uses that word. To the blasé person, things appear in an evenly flat and gray tone. No one object is preferred over another.
That is deeply depressing.
It is. The value of things is felt as negligible. A beautiful sunset or a pile of garbage evoke roughly the same. Nothingness. And the source brilliantly connects this right back to the money economy.
How does it do that?
Remember how money levels everything? It drains the unique quality out of objects and replaces it with a number.
Right. How much?
The blasé attitude is the psychological reflection of that exact process. If everything has a price and everything can be bought or sold, then nothing is truly sacred or unique. It's all just stuff, interchangeable stuff.
That is a perfect modern example with dating apps.
How so?
The dating app is the ultimate blasé machine. You see 1,000 faces an hour and you feel almost nothing. You swipe left, swipe left, swipe left. We're looking at human beings, potential partners, but because there are so many and they are presented so rapidly, they lose their individual value. They become a gray mass of options.
A fantastic example. And this attitude doesn't just make us bored. It changes how we treat the people physically around us. The source talks about the reserve of the city dweller.
This is one of the most relatable parts of the theory for me.
I think for everyone, in a small town, if you walk past someone on the street and you don't acknowledge them, don't nod, don't say hello. It's an act of war. It's incredibly rude.
Oh, absolutely. But in the city, if you walk onto a bus and say good morning to everyone, you are the crazy person.
Exactly. We maintain a reserve. We put up a wall. We pretend the people around us don't exist. We stare at our phones. We read books. We look at the floor. Anything to avoid eye contact.
But the source argues this isn't just indifference. It says that beneath that polite silence, there is often something else. A slight aversion, a strangeness, or even a repulsion.
Repulsion. That seems like a strong word. Do I really find the guy sitting next to me on the train repulsive?
Well, think about the physical reality for a second. In a city, you are constantly forced into intimate physical contact with total strangers. You are squeezed into a subway car, arm to arm, thigh to thigh. You can smell their shampoo or their lack of it. You can hear them breathing. You can feel their body heat.
Okay, you put it that way.
Yeah.
It's deeply uncomfortable.
It is unnatural. We are, at our core, territorial animals. To have that much physical closeness without any psychological closeness, without any relationship, creates a massive internal tension.
So what do we do?
The source suggests that to keep our minds from snapping, we have to actively push back against these people mentally. We have to constantly, subconsciously judge them as other. We cultivate a low-level hostility just to maintain our personal boundaries.
So that sudden flash of anger you feel when someone walks too slow in front of you or their backpack bumps your bag, that's not just impatience. That's my defense mechanism kicking in.
It's a latent antipathy that protects your sanity. Without it, you would be overwhelmed by the sheer mass of humanity. We have to hate the crowd a little bit so we don't drown in it.
That is a bleak picture of our social lives.
What?
But as we mentioned earlier, there is a flip side to this coin.
Right. Section 4, freedom, loneliness, and individuality. We trade this warmth and connection for something else.
We trade it for freedom. And this is the great paradox of the metropolis.
Let's look at that small circle again. The text makes it clear that life in a small community isn't just cozy, it's controlling.
It is suffocatingly controlling. In a small circle, whether it's an ancient village or a modern small town, the individual's under a microscope. The source describes how the group watches you constantly. Your behavior is monitored. Your family history is known by everyone. Your political views, your religious views, your clothing choices, everything is judged.
Divergence is punished. You can't be weird in a village, you have to conform.
No, you can't. The group's survival depends on cohesion, so the boundaries are incredibly tight. But as the group grows, as it explodes into a metropolis, those boundaries just dissolve. The bodily proximity and narrowness of the small town are replaced by distance and anonymity.
And that anonymity is the key to freedom. In the city, I can walk out my door dressed in a clown suit, and honestly, most people won't even look up from their phones.
You can disappear into the crowd.
Huh.
You can completely reinvent yourself. You can have interests or lifestyles that would get you ostracized in a small town. But in the city, you can find your tribe. Or, just as often, you simply find indifference, which is its own kind of permission.
But the source being the realistic buzzkill that it is, immediately points out the cost of this freedom.
Of course it does. And the quote is, "One is never lonelier than in the crowd of a big city."
Yeah, that hits home for a lot of people.
The source clarifies that freedom, in the sociological sense, doesn't mean comfort or happiness. It simply means the absence of social restriction and prejudice. You are free from the judging eyes of your neighbor, but you are also free from the support of your neighbor. You can be entirely, devastatingly alone while being surrounded by a million people.
And this loneliness, combined with the anonymity and the blasé attitude, it creates a new problem. If everyone is indifferent and everyone is rushing and the world is gray, how do you prove you even exist? How do you show that you matter?
You have to shout.
Yeah.
Metaphorically and sometimes in the city, literally. The source argues that this pressure is what drives the modern obsession with eccentricity.
The need to be noticeably different.
Exactly. The city is the seat of the division of labor. To survive economically, you can't just be a generalist anymore. You have to specialize. You can't just be a doctor. You have to be a specialist in the left nostril of children under 5. Yeah. And socially, it's the same dynamic. The source says individuals are tempted to adopt peculiarities or exaggerations just to be noticed. The extravagant fashions, the niche hobbies, the bizarre mannerisms, it's all a strategy.
So the hipster with the waxed mustache and the unicycle, he's not just being weird for the sake of it, he's actually performing a rational act in response to the metropolis.
He is fighting against the grayness. He is trying to create a signal that can break through the wall of indifference. The source says, it is not enough to be different. One must be noticeably different. We are forced to exaggerate our personality because if we don't, we drown in the crowd. We become just another number, another face no one sees.
That is fascinating. We become hyper-individualistic, not because we are so confident and self-assured, but because we are terrified of being invisible.
Precisely. It is a desperate struggle for recognition in an environment that is designed to ignore you.
Wow. Now, this leads us to the final, and I think the most philosophical section of our deep dive, Section 5, Objective versus Subjective Culture. This part was a little dense in the reading, so I really want us to break this down for the listeners.
This is the real capstone of the argument. It explains why we feel so small and overwhelmed in the modern world.
The source distinguishes between objective spirit and subjective spirit. Let's start with the objective spirit. What on earth is that?
Think of the objective spirit as the world's hard drive. It is the sum total of all the culture, technology, tools, art, and knowledge that has been created and stored in the city. It's the libraries, the subway systems, the internet servers, the architecture, the legal codes, the symphonies. It is everything that humanity has created and externalized.
Okay, so it's all the stuff. And the subjective spirit.
That is you. That is your personal development, your internal knowledge, your skills, your emotional depth, what you actually carry around inside your own brain.
And the conflict is?
The conflict is the massive and ever-widening imbalance between the two. The source argues that in the metropolis, the objective spirit grows exponentially. It becomes this massive godlike entity. But the subjective spirit, our own personal growth, simply can't keep up.
Can you give us a concrete example of that gap?
Think about the smartphone in your pocket. That device is a piece of the objective spirit. It is a miracle of engineering, containing thousands of years of progress in math and physics and manufacturing, all condensed into a piece of glass and silicon.
Okay.
Now ask yourself, do you know how to build one?
No clue. I don't even really know how the touchscreen works, if I'm being honest.
Exactly. Do you understand the complex code that runs your apps? Do you understand the global network of satellites it connects to?
Not at all. Not in any real depth.
That is the gap. The things around us, the objective culture, have become infinitely more complex and intelligent than we are as individuals. In the 18th century, a skilled craftsman understood every tool in his shop. He knew how they were made, how to use them, how to fix them. Today, we live in a city full of machines, systems, and institutions that we use every day, but do not understand.
We are surrounded by a genius that isn't ours.
That is a beautiful way to put it. We are surrounded by a genius that isn't ours. And the source uses a very specific word to describe what happens to us in this situation. Atrophy.
Atrophy, like a muscle wasting away.
Precisely.
Yeah.
In the face of this massive, overwhelming organization of this city, the individual's own personality, knowledge, and values seem to shrink or atrophy. We become mere cogs in a machine we don't control and can't comprehend. We become users, not masters.
It makes you feel incredibly insignificant. Like, what is my individual value? I'm just a guy pushing a button on a machine that a genius built.
That is the central struggle of modern life. according to the source. It describes the entire arc of history as the struggle of the individual to preserve their independence and peculiarity against the overwhelming power of society and its accumulated heritage. And the metropolis is the battlefield where this fight is most intense.
We are fighting not to be leveled down into a mere consumer, a mere function.
We are fighting to remain human in a world of superhuman systems.
That explains so much of that vague modern anxiety. It's not just that life is hard, it's that we feel fundamentally inadequate compared to the world we've built for ourselves.
We are dwarfed by our own creation.
So let's try to pull this entire incredible map together. We started on that busy street, feeling the physical impact of the noise and the chaos.
We saw how that intensification of nervous stimulation forces us to build a shield, the intellect. We stop feeling and start thinking, just to survive.
We then saw how that intellectual data processing mindset pairs perfectly with the money economy. We become calculating matter of fact and obsessed with time. We start asking how much instead of what kind.
Which leads, inevitably, to the blasé attitude, the sensory burnout, the graying out of the world, the inability to value things because we've seen too much too fast.
And socially, this makes us hide behind a mask of reserve, pushing people away with a low-level hostility just to keep our sanity in the crowded subway car.
And finally, we saw that we trade the warmth and control in the small town for the freedom and anonymity of the city. But that freedom comes with a deep loneliness, which in turn leads us to act out, to become eccentric, just to prove we aren't just another cog in the massive objective spirit that surrounds us.
It's a heavy, heavy trade-off. The source really drives home that the city grants us freedom and advanced civilization, but the cost seems to be our heart. We sacrifice our instinctive, emotional, spontaneous nature just to make it to work on time.
We trade the unconscious for the conscious, the emotional for the intellectual. It's the price of admission.
So here's the question I want to leave you with, listeners, and this is something that has been bouncing around my head since we started reading this source material. The text says the metropolis is where the struggle between the individual and society is fought out. It's the primary battlefield.
Indeed.
If the city forces you to specialize, to calculate, to become intellectual just to survive its chaos, then look at yourself in the mirror. How much of your current personality is actually you? And how much of it is just a defense mechanism and armor created by the zip code you live in?
That is a chilling thought.
Are you blasé? Are you bored and detached and cynical because that's who you really are deep down? Or are you that way because your environment leaves you no other choice to stay sane?
That really raises the question of whether true, authentic individuality is even possible in the modern metropolis, or if we are all just choosing from a pre-approved set of protective shells, all shaped by the exact same forces.
Something to think about the next time you're stuck in traffic or rushing past a stranger on the sidewalk. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.
Until next time.
Stay curious.